This early morning, let's explore an excerpt from Yong-jia Xuan-jue's Song of Enlightenment. And then let's meditate. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is brought to you by the kind-hearted folks who help support this channel on Patreon. This morning, we could chant and meditate and enjoy a lesson or two. But first, if you love Star Wars and you wish to meditate as transformatively as Rey on Ahch-To under the guidance of Luke Skywalker, be sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. Good news. If at any point during this morning's live stream you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation or Buddhist philosophy or how to apply them to your life, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window on the right-hand side of the screen. Please chant with me. So Zen is the complete realization of mind, the complete cutting off of delusion, the power of wise vision penetrating directly to the unborn. Students of the vigorous will hold the sword of wisdom, the prajna edge is a diamond flame. It not only cuts off useless knowledge, but also exterminates delusions. So we see this passage begins with an so, which is a conjunction. So let's dip back into the previous bit. Holding truth and rejecting delusion, these are but skillful lies. Students who do zazen with such lies love thievery in their own children. They miss the Dharma treasure, that lose their accumulated power. And this disaster flows directly upon dualistic thinking. So we see two things. We see number one, we see two ideas. The first idea we see is delusion. And we see that if our relationship to delusion is guided by duality, it can have disastrous results. And yet, in this morning's verse, we see that just because a dualistic view of transcending delusion is dangerous, doesn't mean the task of transcending delusion is abandoned. So what we're going to see inferred in this morning's early morning's passage, that's the ticket, is that we're going to stick with the idea of transcending delusion, but we're going to change the way in which it's done. So with that in mind, let's reread this early morning's portion. So Zen is the complete realization of mind, the complete cutting off of delusion, the power of wise vision penetrating directly into the unborn. Students of vigorous will hold the sword of wisdom, the prajna edge is a diamond flame. It not only cuts off useless knowledge, but also exterminates delusions. So for this to make sense, let's jump to a different text. This morning's practice text. We're going to ignore the chanting. Well, let's ignore the chanting and go straight to the actual practice. So the actual practice is easy. Physically, we emulate a statue of the Buddha. Legs crossed comfortably with the shins stacked, opening not from the knees but the hips. Hands stacked comfortably in the lap, with the edge of the hands pressed gently against the lower abdomen. We neither hunch our shoulders forward like Quasimodo, nor pull them all the way back like a parasailing recruit, but find the middle ground. Upon her face dances a subtle Mona Lisa smile, or perhaps I should say, a subtle Mona Lisa smile dances upon the corners of our lips, the apples of our cheeks, and the crow's feet of our eyes. Between our head and our pelvis, we generate traction. Physically, our inhalation is shorter and sharper, and our exhalation is longer and softer. Mentally, and this is where things get interesting. Mentally, during our inhalation, we silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this. Why? Every inhalation is wired to access our sympathetic nervous system, whether we wanted to or not. Our sympathetic nervous system has evolved not for active concentration, but for mindfulness, vulnerable, passive, visceral, and random. We're going to see that spirit of yin, not of yang's concentration, but of yin's mindfulness when we return to that text in a few minutes. Our sympathetic nervous systems have evolved to perceive sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like, including emotion, intention, thought, memory, and imagination. So we are capable of perceiving all kinds of stuff, the external, the internal, the physical, the mental, the pleasurable, the painful, the interesting, the boring, the glorious, and the grotesque. This begs the question, what are we to do with all the stuff that we notice? Fortunately, every exhalation is wired to access our parasympathetic nervous system, which is wired for both physical relaxation as well as mental release. Whoops, wrong button. So, there we are, wired to notice and release. Not actively, but passively. The quickest way to mess things up is to use our prefrontal cortex for something which it has not evolved to do. Why do so many people with generalized anxiety disorder who submit to cognitive behavioral therapy wind up developing, in addition to generalized anxiety disorder, depression? Because CBT relies upon using the prefrontal cortex for something which it has not evolved to do, which is the regulation of the underbrain. It's like trying to pound a nail with Waterford crystal. It'll work for one swing and then shatter, all the while doing a mediocre job on driving the nail a substantial distance into the wood. Similarly, just because we can use the prefrontal cortex for something it is not evolved to do doesn't mean it's optimal or sustainable. Similarly, trying to take a controlling view of perception and release is going to deliver results that are subpar and unsustainable. Now, let's go back to a different text. So there's two, when we read the 81 poems of the Tao Te Ching, and if we do it a few times, or a bunch of times, maybe 50 times, we will see patterns. We'll see that in philosophical Taoism, the use of yin and yang is different than it is perhaps in medical Taoism. So in philosophical Taoism, we see that yang or patriarchy could be defined by being rigid, fearful, controlling, elitist, competitive, and cruel. You know, like setting up drowning traps or mutilation traps to harm political refugees at our southern border. You know, cruelty. The opposite of patriarchy is true matriarchy. False matriarchy is patriarchy without a penis, which is just a travesty. True matriarchy, according to the philosophy of the Tao Te Ching, is traversing the path, no less mastering the path, of being flexible, loving, laid-back, egalitarian, cooperative, and kind. The operative phrase here is rigid and controlling versus flexible and laid back. So, returning to this early morning's practice text, when our practice of transcending delusion is marked by rigidity and controlling tendencies, it is going to crash and burn. However, when our transcendence of duality is marked by flexibility and being laid back, it's going to be successful. The method of simply, silently, and mentally reciting the pronoun this as you breathe in and the three-syllable verb relaxing as you breathe out. The silent and mental recitation of these two words in harmony with our inhalation and our exhalation and our relaxation is completely passive. It is going with the flow. It is the key for delusion to expose itself. So if we let go of whatever we perceive, we're going to viscerally process our false assumptions. So a fundamental false assumption. So, by the way, if you want to get really confused about anything, ask a scholar. Yogis have a habit of making things simple. The essence of wisdom, it does not require a PhD or a doctoral dissertation. The essence of wisdom is the cunning use of impermanence to let go. Or if Samuel L. Jackson was here, to let the fuck go. So, simply by noticing and releasing in harmony with our breathing. Delusion, the idea the delusion of grasping is viscerally transcended, not intellectually, but viscerally, which makes sense. Our emotions don't come from our intellect. They come from the dungeon of our brain, so to speak. What is this unborn? This unborn here is one of many metaphors for emptiness. What is emptiness but another metaphor of non-graspability? Whatever we notice as we breathe in, once we begin relaxing in harmony with our exhalation, that exact same thing we noticed can now feel as if it was never born. Can now feel as if it was as non-graspable as a vast empty void. You can now feel as if it was as non-graspable as the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although is tantalizing to the eye, is intangible to the hand. So how do we reconcile a flexible, laid-back approach to having a vigorous will? Simple. Contrary to popular belief, meditation is not sitting here slouching, resting your elbows on your knees, and going to sleep. It takes vigorous will to sit sustainably for 20 or 40 or 60 minutes. It takes vigorous will to listen to our body and saying, when it says, hey, this is great, and to listen to the same body when it says, okay, I've had enough. It takes vigorous will to notice whatever comes up, whether it's interesting or boring or pleasurable or painful or glorious or grotesque. It takes vigorous will to sit there and be shown, for want of a better phrase, instances in our history or in our fantasies when we are not the hero, when we are the fool or the victim or even the villain. I think it was 1971 or 1972, the main ingredient saying, everybody plays the fool. So far, they're 100% correct. Cutting off useless knowledge. So I have both autism and ADHD, which is very ironic because the part of my brain under the influence of autism does not self-prune at all. And the part of the brain under the influence of ADHD just keeps experiencing mnemonic resets non-therapeutically, non-sustainably, inconveniently. So, since most people don't have the mnemonic reset of ADHD, they can benefit from meditation because it's kind of like brushing out your hair before you shampoo it, to get the knots out, or to show you where the knots are. Similarly, vulnerably noticing whatever comes up will show us the areas of our past or our fear or our fantasy life that are opportunities where we get hung up and where we can't process things and let go. And the most efficient form of processing is not auto-interrogation, but simply noticing and releasing and letting the body and the brain use their pre-existing neural pathways to self-regulate and self-heal. The ultimate delusions are that things are graspable. The inferred delusion are that things are graspable because they are permanent. Sitting in meditation viscerally shows us change. Whether it's pleasurable or painful or convenient or inconvenient, it shows us change, which makes, and it shows that it helps us to viscerally experience letting go. So it exterminates the delusions of grasping and permanence. This path, when practiced properly, not actively, but passively, vulnerably, viscerally, and randomly, is messy and inconvenient and a true panacea. Now, let's turn to this morning's practice text. If you had 5 or 6 books to set vertically or horizontally upon a very large and empty bookshelf, they would keep tipping over unless you used bookends on the other side of them. We're going to use the bookends of chanting to help us further train in empathy and enthusiasm. We've already trained in wisdom. Now let's train in empathy and enthusiasm. Let's start off by chanting this one quatrain 3 times. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. Now, right now, I'm a little tired, so I think it could be fun to blend this recitation with what I like to call geriatric step-back squat thrusts. This is optional. You don't have to do it with me. I just think it's invigorating and fun. On second thought, let's do some Qigong. Let's stand with our feet parallel and approximately 1 foot apart from each other, approximately. Let's start swinging your hands out in front of each other and then flapping our arms like a birdie. So swing and flap. And now let's reverse that. Flap and swing. Now let's, what I like to call the elevator. Hands, palms up. Elevator up. Elevator down. And second thought. Let's do elevator up and flop the arms. Elevator up, flop the arms. Elevator up, flop the arms. Now, elevator up and down. Elevator up, elevator down. Elevator up, elevator down. Elevator up, elevator down. Let's put our hands into fists and rest these fists behind our kidneys. Gently roll up on the balls of our feet. Gently roll down to our heels. Let's take a wide stance. Put our knees on our thighs. Stick our tush out back. And gently articulate our thoracic spine to the left, to the right, left, right. Let us stand up straight. Put our hands into Kung Fu gesture, which is basically hands up. Point with your index finger. Everything else kind of curls in. Curls in. So let us cross our arms and pull, pretend we're pulling back into the visible bow. Squat down, engage that thachas, stand back up, and reverse it. Let us assume a comfortable posture. Personally, I'm not sure if you can see this. I've got a yoga blanket folded up, about $20. Got a zafu with buckwheat holes. There are different ways we can sit. Some people like to touch the soles of their feet and bring it in or extend it out. Some people like one leg in, one leg out. I find that too hard in my SI joint. Some people like to place each heel under its thigh, cross their legs. I don't like that. My favorite version is the quarter lotus, where one shin is flat and the other rests upon it, turning out not from the knees, but the hips. Hands resting in the lap, thumb is touching. I like to align these joints in such a way that allows the thumbs to meet at the navel level. I don't know why. This seems to be the consensus of all the teachers I've received over the decades. Let's meditate. Oops, did we finish chanting? Yes, we did. Okay, so let's meditate. Remember, we're not concentrating. Whatever we experience, circumstantially, physically, interpersonally, or mentally, we're just perceiving it. We don't talk to ourselves. We don't try to believe something or scold something or wish something. As we exhale, we just physically let go and the mind follows suit. Let us seal this morning's practice with a bit of the old wishing love. May everyone be free from suffering. May everyone be happy. May no one be separated from the happiness. May everyone have balance from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging, freed. If you feel that I have earned it, you could type something in the chat window. You could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could share it with a friend. You could even help support this channel on Patreon. In approximately 2.5 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's mid-morning meditation. Until then, may you and yours be happy and healthy. And if you are as geeky as me, this is the way.